Hey friends, and welcome to my June wrap-up. I'm just going to go through and show you what I've read and give you my star rating, and I'm going to try and do it kind of quick because there's a lot of them. So the first book I read this month was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I gave this 5 stars. It was amazing. I talked about it in my last video. I sobbed at 2 a.m. I read it in one sitting, and this made me fall in love with Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I absolutely love her. The next book I read was Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I had to wait for this to come in because my Barnes & Noble was sold out. It was a whole catastrophe, honestly. I rated this 4 stars. I gave Vicious 5, but I didn't think this was as good as Vicious, but it was still pretty cool, and there was new characters, a lot of female characters in this one, but not enough of my boy Victor Vale, really truly. So it was still pretty good, but I gave it 4 stars. You're going to see I have a lot of 4 or 5 star reads. I rate pretty high, generally. The third book I read this month was The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I actually annotated this one, or just tabbed it, and I loved it. It's historical fiction. I gave it 5 stars. I didn't cry because I already knew how it was going to end, but I was really sad, and the whole book was just great. If you have not read this, I really, really recommend you do. The fourth book I read this month was The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. I rated this 3 stars. This is my book of the month for May. I read both of my May book of the months in June. But it was okay. I read it pretty quickly, but I tend to do that with book of the month books because they're generally so short. But the plot twist didn't really do it for me, and I didn't love the ending. The ending kind of disappointed me. So it was still okay. It was just not the greatest. The 5th book I read this month was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I think that's how you say his name. 5 stars. I loved this book. I talked about it in my last video. The plot twist really had me. I was shook, and I loved this book. I also really liked the way the story was told, and how you could see, even though Alicia is this patient who hasn't talked, it would show diary entries from her diary, so you still got to kind of see Alicia's side of things and like what she was thinking as well, and it really just shook me. So I really recommend this book. The 6th book I read this month was Adrienne by Jennifer Saint. I gave this 3 stars, and I know a lot of people really love this. This was also, this was actually my May book of the month, and The Last Thing He Told Me was an add-on that I did. But the second half of this book I found way more interesting than the first half. I didn't care about any of the parts about like her meeting Theseus, and if I'm gonna be honest, I feel like I ended up skimming most of this book because I just didn't really enjoy it, so I felt like I just needed to get through it, and I kind of ended up skimming most of it. There were parts I really liked, but overall I wasn't like in love with this story, so I gave it 3 stars. The 7th book I read this month was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I adored this. I gave it 5 stars. I want a love like theirs. I talked about it in my last video. This book made me cry because I just want someone to love me the way they love each other, and it was so cute. Perfect for the summer, and I plan on reading Beach Read in July, so I really enjoyed this book. I read it, I took it with me on vacation. I have a TikTok video like about what all of my friends read when we went on vacation, and this was in it, and I did get kind of distracted on vacation because I was at the beach and I like really couldn't sit down and read, but once I actually sat down and started reading it, I couldn't stop, and it was so amazing. Book number 8 is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, because this was a Taylor Jenkins Reid month. I also rated this 5 stars. I loved it. I really like the setup where it's more like interview style. The band members are telling their sides of the story, and it was really fun whenever their stories didn't line up on little things. And I also cried reading the end of this book. It was amazing. I would definitely recommend it. Also, this and 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo are both getting TV shows, so I definitely recommend picking them up because they're going to be a TV show. So book number 8 was a long time coming, and it's The Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling, which I'm not a fan of her, but I do love this series. I started it like years ago. I've seen all of the movies. My best friend is like Harry Potter fanatic. Like, she loves Harry Potter. It's her favorite thing in the world. We threw her Harry Potter birthday. So I read the first 4, loved the first 4, and then got stuck on the 5th one, and I read like half of it. Then I came back this year and read the other half of it, and then last month I read Half-Blood Prince, and so here we are. I was kind of putting it off. I gave it 5 stars. I think this one and the first one are the only 2 of the series I gave 5 stars because I really just didn't feel anything, but I think that's kind of partially because I've already seen the movie, so I didn't get sad at stuff like I already knew was going to happen. But this book, I still sobbed. I cried twice. I read it in like less than 24 hours. I started it, read 500 pages in one day. Okay, that's absolutely insane. Cried at like the halfway point. Then I stopped and I got up the next day and I finished it and I cried again. So I really did enjoy this, and I'm glad that I actually read the books. Okay, so the 10th book I read was The Maidens. This was my June book of the month, and I picked it up. Actually, when I saw this on book of the month, I ordered it, and I had not read Silent Patient, but I wanted to, so that's why I went and bought Silent Patient and read it. I gave this 4 stars. I don't think it was as good as the Silent Patient, but it was still pretty interesting. There were a couple of parts that I found a little boring, but I did still enjoy it. Also, spoiler, it ties in with the Silent Patient. That wasn't like a major spoiler. The next book I read, I have a really bad way to show you this. I actually received an arc of Strange Gods by Alison Kimball, and I sat down and read this in like 2 days. I started it on my iPad, read some on my phone while I was sitting out by the pool, and then I went to Mississippi State, so Hell State. They're in the College World Series right now. So their last game, like in the last bracket before finals, I actually read this in the first couple innings of that game while nothing was happening and finished it. And so since I had to watch a baseball game for, you know, however many hours and nothing was happening, it was nice to have this to just read. It was honestly pretty good. I rated it 4 stars, but if you want to see my full review, I have an Instagram post on my Instagram, and you can read more about it there. Also, this is up for pre-sale. It comes out on July 20th. So if you go and look and see what it's about on my Instagram and you think you might like it, you should pick it up. And the 12th and final book I read this month was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. In my last book, I said this was a book that had been released that I had not read, that I wanted to read, and that I didn't have money to get it. Well, I went with my mom to Barnes & Noble because she wanted to go, and she was so sweet, and she bought me this. So shout out to my mother for getting me Malibu Rising. I sat down and read this. The first half of it, I started it at midnight, so that was a problem. I read the first half of it, forced myself to go to sleep, and then finished it the next day. I did give it 4 stars. I like, you know, Daisy Jones and Six and Evelyn Hugo were 5 stars for me. I didn't think it was as good, but that's because it wasn't as emotional to me, and the situations in it didn't really hit home to me either, so I didn't get emotional with this, and I like emotional books. But it was still a really good read, and I would definitely recommend this as a summer read. You should still pick it up. I just don't think it was as good as Daisy Jones and Evelyn Hugo. So those were all of the books that I read in June, but I do want to do an honorable mention because when I get to these wrap-ups, I always have this problem of I start a book, and by the time I have to film the wrap-up so that I can like edit it and put it out, sometimes I read a whole other book in between those 2 days because I can knock a book out in 2 days. So I do want to give an honorable mention to The Night Circus. I started this. I'll probably read like half of it today. There's a good possibility that I will finish it before tomorrow night and before, you know, the 1st of July. So if you see this on the July wrap-up, I didn't finish it. But if you don't, I finished it before June was up. I barely started this, but I do plan on sitting down and reading for a while today. We have another baseball game. If we lose this baseball game, we're out. I will be sad because we lost last night. If the game is as high stress as the game last night was, I probably won't read as much, but if the game is like kind of slow, then I'll probably get a good chunk of this done tonight, and I may finish it. So those were the 12 books that I read in June. It was a lot of books, but I am out for the summer, so I have plenty of time to read. I'll probably have a lot in July as well, especially, well, I don't know. I'm going on vacation twice, and one of those vacations is going to be not as relaxed. When I go to the beach, I may read a couple, but I'm going to Michigan, so I probably will not have time as much to read the week that I'm there, so we'll see for July. I'm not gonna make a, I'm gonna make a TBR video on my TikTok, but I wasn't going to make one on here because I just never stick to TBRs anyways. But for a fact, I do know I'm going to try to read A Little Life next month, and I'm going to try to read at least Empire Storms, and I kind of want to read From Blood and Ash. So those are my plans. It may not happen because I am terrible at sticking to TBRs, and I just go for what I'm in the mood for. So we'll see about that. That's a potential TBR. If you want to see the TBR I actually come up with, you can go to my TikTok. I will have a video on there probably tomorrow. Well, for you it'll be today because I'm filming this the day before. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and if you love them, I would love to talk books in the comments with you. So thanks for watching. Bye.